The first place to take an out-of-town guest would be St. Joseph's Basilica, down there on 6th and Lincoln. That, to me, is the most interesting building in Milwaukee, both architecturally and socially. It goes back to 1888 as a parish. Parish, like 15,000 members, probably a small city, biggest parish of any kind in the entire state. They hired an architect named Erhard Brielmeier to design a scaled-down version of St. Peter's in Rome. It was supposed to be a brick church, so the pastor went down there looking for bricks and he found the Chicago post office that was being torn down. He bought the whole thing and moved all those stones up here. So it's a green building. This would be LEED Platinum, if there were such a thing back in 1901. People who built those tiny, tiny houses on 25-foot lots, these tiny Polish flats, were the same people who built St. Joseph's. So big churches, small houses, and that's, I think, a pretty remarkable example of how important the place of worship was for all the immigrant communities. City Hall, 200 East Wells. Goes back to 1895. Style is described as Flemish Renaissance. Been declared by some experts as the most beautiful city hall in the entire country. Kind of tiered like a wedding cake, one with a soaring central bell tower. The Mitchell Building down there on Water in Michigan is another stand-down. That goes back to 1876. They describe as French Second Empire, very Baroque. What that represents is kind of the first fortune being made in Milwaukee. It was the project of a guy named Alexander Mitchell, who was a Scottish immigrant who began the Marine Bank, the Milwaukee Road, and Northwestern National Insurance, property and casualty company. That was the home for all three. Central Library, down there in 9th and Wisconsin. That was finished back in 1898. It was designed after the Columbian Exposition buildings, the World's Fair back in 1893. So if it looks a little like the Museum of Science and Industry, it should. You know, it's the same style, that same kind of derivative style. Again, a statement of the importance of knowledge to people. What we raise up, I think we express our values in terms of our architecture. Soldiers' Home. That goes back to a time when the women of Milwaukee were disturbed by all these Union veterans who had been disabled, either physically or mentally, during the Civil War, wandering home with not a shred of resources. They had a Soldiers' Home fair that raised something like $100,000, and they used that as kind of a carrot to convince the federal government to make Milwaukee one of the centers of the first 3 national asylums for disabled Union veterans. Edward Townsend Mix was the architect who also designed the Wisconsin Club and the Mitchell Building. Again, kind of a statement of values, saying that we, back in the 1860s, we valued our veterans, people who had put their lives on the line for the Union cause in this case, and now that commitment is finally being reaffirmed.